Hey everyone, this is Pete Toll, PT Sports 84 on Twitter. Today I just wanted to kind of go over some of the errors in the current team tendencies for NBA 2K21. D for 3 has pretty much covered very well, I might add, all the inaccuracies to the classic and all-time teams. So I kind of took it as just a, passion project. I do it every year on my own anyway. I revamp the tendencies to get gameplay realistic. I don't really worry about the sim stats because anybody that does tendency editing knows that you're either going to get realistic gameplay or you're going to get realistic stats depending on how you tweak those values. You really can't get both. You can get them in some categories, but pretty much across the board, you're going to have one or the other. I like to go for realistic gameplay. So, as you can see here, I wanted to start with, the roster screen, because, that way nobody can say, oh, you're reusing a user-created roster. This is the official 2K Sports roster I'm going off of. See, I go in there. For anybody that obviously doesn't know, you can do quick edit, hit, go through, and it has the different options. But we want to go to tendencies today. I want to actually start out with one of the tendencies I just kind of been researching a little bit here lately, and that's the stepback three tendency. They have one of the key guys that shoots a ton of step backs. 50% of his shots is Luka Doncic. He obviously, as you can see here in the default roster, his shot 3 tendency is a 98. But then if you go over to his step back jumper 3 tendency, it is a 0. And if you go to his stats page and compile his regular season attempts and his playoff bubble attempts for the 2019-2020 season, 294 of his 3-point shot attempts out of 585 total 3-point shot attempts, that includes pull-ups, jump shots, step backs, everything. So 294 out of 585 is 50%, and he has a 0. That is unacceptable. If you're the leading, video game title that preaches realistic simulation, basketball, you have to fix these tendencies. I'm just kind of honing in on some of the key players today. I pretty much am working on a whole list, and I'll have a video releasing that probably in about a week because it'll take me a little bit because I'm not working on this full time to get them out. But you have a guy like James Harden. Obviously, we know he's the king of step backs. 589 step back 3 attempts out of 960 of his total 3-point attempts between the regular season and the bubble is only 61%, and here they have him at a 75. Now, one thing I want to key in 2K, not many people really know, I don't even know if they care or know, there is a threshold for certain values when it comes to the tendencies for those, animations to play out. So for a step back, if majority, obviously, of Harden shots, 61% of them are step backs. But if you go in here and you put a 61 for Harden, it doesn't necessarily translate in-game to a 61. That's why they have it at a 75, which, is, to me, pretty good considering, because basically the bottom of the barrel for the animation of a step back to even appear to happen, it basically has to be, I believe, if it's still around a 20 to 25 range, it just depends on what else is tweaked with the player, the play that's ran, like a bunch of different factors, badges, all kinds of things kind of factor into that. But a 75 here is actually accurate, so that's good. But then if you look at his step back mid-range tendency, that's not good. He does not shoot very many mid-range, obviously. 3 of his attempts in the playoffs came from a step back mid-range, and 11 of his attempts in the regular season came from the step back in mid-range. So that should be bottomed out literally to like a 5 to 10 range. So he very rarely ever shoots them unless he's, pretty heavily contested or trying to get a shot off at the end of the shot clock or something quick, that kind of thing. I want to move over to a guy like Damian Lillard. So we all know that Lillard, uses the step back, but he doesn't use it as much as he uses, say, like a pull-up three. Like the pull-up three is kind of like his go-to, bucket getting shot. So 121 out of 706 attempts, three-point attempts, makes 17% for the regular season and the bubble, and he has a 75. Now, Damian Lillard, if you're looking at 17, I would say put him around a 30 range if it was me, just because that way the animation, or 35 even, just so the animation kicks in, but it's not overpowered. But then you have to go over to, the pull-up as well, because this drive pull-up right here is what you're going to want to increase with Damian Lillard to get that shot off as his three-point pull-up tendency. We've all seen him put guys out of the playoffs, multiple times. The Rockets, Westbrook, over Paul George, those kind of situations. So, you basically just kind of have to go through and really not only look at stats, because the tendencies cannot translate from strictly stats. You cannot look at stats on the NBA.com stats page or the basketball reference page and say, oh, I'm just going to plug these values into 2K and they're going to work, because they're not. You have to, number one, play with the scale to know, okay, this is the threshold that the values kick in at. This is the threshold where it's too high, and this guy's going to shoot this attempt so many times and not shoot anything else. It's all a proper balance of, key stats, using that as your research, but then going into 2K and knowing what triggers into the animations and also into the offensive AI systems and what the defense is going to react to and things like that. Want to go to something that kind of is a little bit alarming to me. Not shocking, but it's a little bit alarming. If you look at the step back tendencies, I'm going to go ahead and sort them by the highest. Eric Bledsoe, Ersan Ilyasova, and Wesley Matthews all have very high step back three tendencies. For Eric Bledsoe, on the entire season, including the regular season and the bubble, only 21 step back three attempts were taken out of 247 of his total 3-point shots on the season. That makes 8% of his shots, and he's at a 65. That can't happen in a game to get realistic gameplay flow. Ersan Ilyasova, 21 of his 142 attempts between the regular season and the bubble equals 15% for step back threes. Yet, here he is with the 55. Wesley Matthews, 16 out of 340 3-point attempts equals 5%, and he's at a 55. These are the errors that make it in that just are unacceptable. And if you go back to prior 2Ks, it's happened the same way. You just have to look at it across the board and know what player does what in what situation. So you have to watch basketball first of all. The second thing is I don't expect everybody out there to be a stats nerd and look at each team every day. That's fine. But you should at least kind of know a basis of what each person does. Now, they have Zach LaVine as a step back three, 53 of his attempts for the season. So he's actually rated right. That's fine. But then when you look at his drive pull-up, basically that's right. Like, they got a guy like Zach LaVine, correct, because 99 out of his 484 pull-up attempts are from, basically a pull-up three. So he gets a 20. Now, 20 is the lowest that it's going to trigger. You might get 15, you might see it just barely, but anything under that is going to be so rare that you're never going to see it in the game. So I would actually probably bump him up to a 25, but that's nitpicking. That's not really, a 20 is fair enough because it's kind of right on the average. But if 2K can get that right, then they can get guys like Matthews and Bledsoe right. And then you got, random stats in here. Thanasis Antetokounmpo, he's an athletic guy that gets to the rim and tries to power dunk and do those things. He has a 6. Now, I think that was a mistake on the spreadsheet because there's a 2 for the step-back jumper mid-range. These values don't really match because they try to go by, increments of 5 for the most part. And this would be a 1 and this would be a 1. You could value it out at a 0, but I think, just giving the ability if that situation was to ever happen in a shot clock rundown situation, then you would want it at a 1 just in case. But, it just comes down to knowing basketball. One of the things I want to highlight, and I posted this on my Twitter, it's PT Sports 84. You can pretty much find all of the mishaps. I've already posted them. I'll probably do a video to go along with that. But roll versus pop tendency. This is very, very, very important for gameplay. The higher the value is, the more that player is going to roll to the rim. The lower the value is, going all the way down to 0. It's a 0 to 99. You could even put a 100 scale if you want. There's no difference between 99 and 100, for the most part. So for that player to pop and shoot threes or just be a primary shooter, things like that, he needs to be at a 0. For a drive and dunker, a guy that, pick and rolls, dives to the rim, 99. So, as you can see, they have guys here, Bledsoe, Ilyasova, DiVincenzo, George Hill at a 20. They all need to be 0. They're incorrect. You've got guys on the roster that just are shooters and they have them at a 99, or they're guys that dunk. Like Vincent Poirier, most people don't know who he is, but he's going to dive to the rim in a pick and roll situation or cut to the rim. He does not shoot from the outside, but he has a 0 like he's a guard. It just doesn't make sense to me. And, these are easy things to clean up. Very easy things to clean up. DeAndre Bembry is not a guy that's going to drive or dive to the rim as a pick and roll guy. John Collins is. But Bembry should be a 0. And then you got Collins there at a 75. Dwayne Dedmon is a three-point threat that can stretch the floor. He should not be a 99. Now, he shouldn't be a 0, but he shouldn't be a 99. So you kind of have to calculate how many three-point attempts he has, versus the pick and roll, which you can find on NBA.com, the stats, and figure out the percentages there. It's not hard. Kendrick Nunn, three-point shooter. He pulls up from the mid-range. He can shoot threes. He's not a guy that rolls to the rim. 55 tendency like he's going to roll to the rim. So these are the mistakes that, 2K has to clearly fix. And I'm going to keep, basically diving into the tendencies and keep posting as much as I can. But, we need to get this looked at. But I'm going to keep going through the categories and periodically post different things that are wrong. And I hope everybody will like, share, subscribe to my channel. And please share this once I post it on Twitter and other social media platforms, because we need to draw attention to all of the errors for the tendencies. Mike Stoffer and his team has the attributes area covered. They whether you agree or don't agree, they're still covered. But let's fix the tendencies. Hope everybody has a great day.